Good evening, friends. It is December 11th, 2019. We are edging closer to the big day, Christmas. So let's continue and possibly finish on Christmas Eve by Anne M. Martin. We just left off. Santa went back up the chimney after visiting Tess and Sadie, and she found out that Santa can grant wishes and he might not be able to grant miracles. So let's see what happens. Chapter 11. Sadie, I try again. Sadie cocks her head and looks charmingly at me, the way she does many, many times every day. But I don't hear her voice. Not aloud and not in my head. What happened to your voice? I ask. Why don't you talk to me? Sadie's mouth parts in a grin. She lets her tongue hang out, and she gives me her squinty-eyed look. Sadie. Sadie. Now Sadie can't seem to talk to me at all, and I don't know why. I have about a million more questions to ask her. I tried to send them directly into her head, the way she sent her words into mine. I concentrate as hard as I can. Sadie, does the magic happen like this every year? I squeeze my eyes shut tight and imagine the words floating through the air between our heads and entering Sadie's brain. If they reach her, she shows no sign. I try speaking the words aloud. Nothing. Sadie still sits on the floor grinning and giving me squinty eyes. I look around the living room. The fire has died and become glowing embers once again. Santa's snack is now -1 snowman cookie, and a few drops of hot chocolate are drying from a bit he spilled when he sipped from the mug. I peek into our stockings. There are the gifts Santa slipped into them: the kaleidoscope, the book, the puzzle, the jacks. Under the tree are the larger gifts he added. They blend in with the others so well that at first I can't locate them. But then there they are, the gifts labeled "From Santa," that, in our excitement tomorrow, Mom and Dad and Evie will each think someone else placed under the tree. But I'll know who they're from. I spy a corner of tissue paper on the rug and stoop to pick it up. It's all that remains of my gift to Santa. The snow globe is now riding around the world in the back of the most glorious sleigh I can imagine. I sigh. I feel somehow both happy and cheated. I am awed by what I have seen tonight, but I can't believe that Sadie stopped talking to me just when I had so many, many questions for her. And now I won't be able to speak to her again for a full year. But I remind myself, Sadie can understand me. All year long when I talk to her, even if she is looking at me with her goofy grin or her silly squinty eyes, I must remember that she understands me, truly understands me, which makes for half the conversation. And half the conversation is a lot better than no conversation at all. Plus, next Christmas Eve, I will be able to talk with her again. Also, I think as I look around the living room, making sure it's the way Mom and Dad left it when they went upstairs to bed, by next Christmas Eve, Sarah's father will probably be well. Santa didn't make any promises, but I know he'll do his best. I climb the stairs, Sadie at my side, and imagine Santa sprinkling his magic over the Benjamin's house as he and the reindeer fly by. Christmas Day is as exciting as ever, but Sadie and I yawn our way through it since we were up so late visiting with Santa. This is the first Christmas I haven't wakened everybody at 5:30. Mom thinks it's because I'm growing up. No more stumbling out of bed at the crack of dawn, she says to Dad. It's 9 o'clock before we're sitting around the living room with our stockings in our laps. I pay close attention to Mom and Dad and Evie as they find the gifts from Santa. When Dad reaches into his stocking and pulls out the tiny book, he looks at it and smiles fondly at Mom, who's peeling the foil off of a piece of chocolate and doesn't notice him or the book. Christmas morning, says Mom with a satisfied smile. The one time it's okay to have chocolate for breakfast. When Evie finds the kaleidoscope, she says, "Cool," and goes on to the next gift while Dad jumps up to answer the telephone and Mom pokes at the fire. When Mom pulls out the puzzle, she says, My, a real brain teaser. But Dad is still on the phone, and Evie is now peering at the gifts under the tree. Hey, says Evie suddenly, standing up and noticing the table on which we left Santa's snack. What do you know? Look at that. Laura, Dad calls to Mom, it's your sister on the phone. Mom joins Dad in the kitchen. Evie considers the remains of Santa's snack. Only one cookie gone, she says. I guess Mom and Dad were pretty full from dinner. The drips of hot chocolate are a nice touch, though, aren't they? I glance at Sadie and see that she is regarding me solemnly. I am absolutely sure she knows what I'm thinking right now. After breakfast, we open the presents under the tree. We are having so much fun. I jump up and down when I get a pair of roller skates with their very own key, and Evie actually shrieks when she opens a set of curlers exactly like Maggie's. But I almost forget to watch what happens when I open the game of Monopoly and Evie opens the box of watercolors. But I do remember in time, and I watch my parents' faces. I see their eyes twinkle as they exchange small smiles. Dad is probably thinking what a thoughtful shopper Mom is, and Mom is probably wondering when Dad secretly went to the toy store. By lunchtime, the gifts have all been opened, and Evie and I lie on the floor amid bits of wrapping paper and talk about our gifts. Usually Sarah and her parents come for a visit on Christmas afternoon, but not this year. Mr. Benjamin isn't allowed to leave the house, and anyway, Sarah and her mom and dad just want to spend one more day together before Mr. Benjamin returns to the hospital. I miss Sarah, but Evie kindly shows me how to use her curlers. That night I go to bed early. By now Mom is beginning to think of coming down with a cold, and Sadie crawls under the covers with me. I'm glad you're part of the magic, I tell her, and I can't wait until next Christmas Eve, but I'm going to talk to you all year long. You are the best dog ever. I kiss her on the top of her head, and she nestles against my side. By New Year's Eve, Mr. Benjamin has been back in the hospital for 5 days. Sarah comes to our house to spend the night. Since Maggie is spending the night too, we should feel as though we're having a pajama party. But Sarah knows she's here because her mother is planning to stay at the hospital later than usual. She wants to be with Dad on the very first moment of this year, Sarah tells me. She pauses. I don't think they're going to be together for the last moment of it. I am shocked when I realize what Sarah is saying, and I don't know how to answer her. I want to tell her that I have important information, but I can't. Not without also telling her what happened on Christmas Eve, which she will never believe. New Year's Eve seems very, very long, but we try to be merry. Evie and Maggie make confetti with us. We spend more than an hour snipping away at pieces of colored construction paper. Mom has bought several rolls of crepe paper, and we hang streamers from the living room ceiling. We play games and keep our eyes on the clock. A few minutes before midnight, Mom sets out 6 fancy glasses. She pours champagne for her and Dad, and ginger ale for Evie and Maggie and Sarah and me. When the clock strikes 12, we all scream and throw the confetti in the air and shout, Happy New Year! And I look at Sadie and think about what happened at midnight a week earlier. Vacation ends and school begins again. Our decorations have been tucked carefully into their boxes. The boxes stowed in the attic. Dad has tossed our tree into the backyard behind the shed, where I know I will come across it during the summer, brittle and dry. In town, the lights and ribbons and garlands have disappeared, and in Mr. Vincel's store window is a display of model trains, which is interesting, but not festive. I make a chart, my very own calendar, of the days remaining until next Christmas, until I can talk to Sadie and see Santa and feel the magic again. But the holidays seem miles and miles away. Chapter 12. January drags along with no interesting holidays, but we do get 2 snow days in a row, on a Thursday and a Friday, so we have a small unexpected vacation in the middle of the month. Then come February and Groundhog Day, and I make Sadie stand in our front yard to see if she casts the shadow, which she does, but Evie and I can't agree on what that means. On the day after Groundhog Day, I get busy making my Valentines. I make cards for everyone in my class, for Miss Sullivan, for Evie, for Mom and Dad, and my grandparents, and for Sadie. In school, we make Valentine pouches out of construction paper. We take them to our desks and watch them fill up with the cards we deliver to each other. Miss Sullivan plans a party for our class to be held on Friday afternoon, which is actually the day before Valentine's Day. Our parents are invited, and we spend some time cleaning our classroom for them and putting our best work on the bulletin boards. Also, we memorize 2 poems to recite for them: Wynken, Blynken, and Nod, and The Owl and the Pussycat. Our class will recite the poems together, except for a few solo parts, and this is called choral speaking. By Friday morning, I am beside myself with excitement. I cannot wait for the party. After recess, my classmates and I will finally be allowed to open the valentines in our pouches. Then our parents will arrive, and we will have the choral speaking, followed by refreshments, punch, candy hearts, and pink cupcakes. I am standing in our kitchen after breakfast, telling Mom about the cupcakes, surrounded by the mountain of clothing I have to put on in order to walk through the snow to the bus stop when the phone rings. It's Sarah. I'm not coming to school today, she tells me. Are you sick? I ask. She sighs. I just want to spend the day with Dad. Did he come home? No, he's still in the hospital, but I'm allowed to visit him in his room now. Why don't you visit him tomorrow? I suggest. You're going to miss the party today. I know, and I'm sorry. Someone else will have to say my part in Wynken, Blynken, and Nod. I want to be with Dad. Okay, I say. I'll tell Miss Sullivan to keep your valentines for you, unless you want me to bring them home. That's okay, says Sarah. You can leave them at school. I don't think I'll see you this weekend. The Valentine's Day party is fun, but not as much fun as it would have been if Sarah were there. But she isn't there, and she's right. I don't see her over the weekend. She misses a lot of school during the next couple of weeks, and then one day while we're eating lunch in the cafeteria, she tells me that her father is coming home from the hospital for the last time. Home for good, I exclaim. I am absolutely thrilled. I remembered my conversation with Santa Claus. I picture him sailing over the Benjamin's house in his sleigh. The trail of sparkling mist settling over their roof, seeping into the walls and rooms and sleeping people. But Sarah isn't smiling. And soon she stops coming to school. She stops coming over to our house, too. Ordinarily, I would ask Mom and Dad about this, but now I'm afraid. Something is happening that I don't want to know about. I try imagining Santa's magic. I imagine it as stronger and more powerful than ever. At night, I sit up in bed, look out my window, remember Christmas Eve, and think that somehow everything will be set right. Somehow, Santa will keep his promise to me. Sarah wanted only one gift. Surely he granted it to her. She isn't greedy. And Santa is kind and thoughtful. But one night in the middle of March, when I haven't seen Sarah for nearly 2 weeks, Mom and Dad call Evie and me into the living room and tell us to sit down. Mom's eyes are red and Dad's face is grim. I am already in my bathrobe and I twist the belt around in my hands. Then I pull Sadie into my lap and hold her close. Before Mom and Dad even speak, Evie says, "It's Mr. Benjamin, isn't it?" "Yes," says Dad. I hold Sadie tighter. "Did he die?" asks Evie. "Yes," says Dad again. And for just a moment, the only thing I can think about is Christmas Eve and standing here in the living room talking with Santa Claus. I asked him about his magic, about finding houses and jobs and making sick people well. Now I try to remember exactly what he said to me. He said he could do those things instead of leaving presents, didn't he? He said he does his best. My lip trembles, and I feel tears spilling down my cheeks. They drip onto Sadie's back. I don't understand. Why did he leave the hospital? I brush at the tears, and Mom hands me a tissue. Because the doctors couldn't help him anymore, says Dad, and he wanted to be at home with his family. When is the funeral? Asks Evie. Thursday morning, Mom replies. Will we all go? Dad and I will. I think you girls will go to school as usual. Evie and I have never been to a funeral. Mom and Dad always say we are too young. Sarah will be at the funeral, points out Evie. And she'll need me, I add. We'll think about it, Dad says. In the end, Evie and I are allowed to go to the funeral. The night before, Mom looks through my closet with me. She says I must wear black to the service. The only black dress I own is the velvet one Nana Florence made. The last time I wore it was on Christmas Eve. On Thursday morning, Evie and I eat breakfast in our nightgowns. Then we dress for the funeral. I look at my family as we leave our house. Mama and Evie and I are in black dresses. Dad is wearing a black suit and a black-blue necktie. He looks grim again, and I begin to feel nervous. I do not know what to expect this morning. We will see Mr. Benjamin at the funeral, I ask as we settle into our car. I have never seen a dead person before. No, says Mom. The casket will be closed. She turns around to look at me in the back seat. Are you sure you want to go to the funeral, Tess? We could drop you off at school on the way to the church. I actually am not sure I want to go to the funeral, but I have told Sarah I will be there and I cannot let her down. In town, we park in the lot behind our church, just as we do every Sunday. The lot is crowded. We climb out of the car and walk around to the front of the church. An usher is waiting at the door, and Dad speaks quietly to him. Then the usher leads us down the aisle to the second row of pews. We will be sitting behind Mrs. Benjamin and Sarah's grandparents. Some very nice music is being played on the organ, but I don't pay much attention to it. I sit and stare at my hands until Evie nudges me, and I see that Sarah and her mother are being led into the church. When they sit down, Sarah directly in front of me, I lean forward and tap her shoulder. Sarah turns around and gives me a tiny wave. She's crying. So is Mrs. Benjamin. I slide back in my seat and start to cry too. I see that Dad has slipped his arm around Mom's shoulder and that Mom is holding Evie's hand. Evie reaches for mine. I hardly hear a word the minister says during the service. I am thinking about Sarah and her father, and about Christmas and wishes and believing, and about the one thing I asked Santa for. It wasn't even my wish, it was Sarah's, and it wasn't granted. I lift my head as the minister is saying, "Will always be remembered," and see Sarah's shoulders shaking. This must be the saddest day of her life. Chapter 13. After the funeral, time seemed to move slowly. Each day crawls by. Sarah comes back to school, and everyone is nice to her. The girls offer her erasers and gum. The boys choose her for dodgeball teams, and in class they never pull her chair out from under her. But something unexpected happens. Sarah and I begin to have trouble talking to each other. Maybe it's my imagination, but Sarah seems grown up now. Being with her is like being with Mom and Dad, who can vote and drive. Since I have never done these things, I feel separate from them, and also like a little kid, and that's how I feel with Sarah. Sarah has become very serious. She doesn't laugh. She gets mad at me when I haven't done anything at all. One day I say to her, "Why don't you come over this afternoon? You haven't been to our house for so long. In December you came over all the time." Sarah glares at me. "Dad was in the hospital then, remember?" "Well, of course I remember." I try again. "We can make doll clothes," I suggest. "That's for babies," says Sarah. In April, we have a week off from school, which means 9 days of vacation, including the weekends. Mom and Dad decide to take a trip to Florida. "We'll ask Sarah and her mother to come with us," says Mom. I groan. "Can't we just go by ourselves?" Mom looks at me over her glasses, and I don't say anything else. We stay in a big old hotel on the beach, and Evie and I are given our own room. It connects to Mom and Dad's room by a door that is usually left open, but Evie and I are still thrilled. We pretend we are French sisters on vacation by ourselves. Sarah and her mother are staying in a room across the hall. On our first morning in Florida, after an evening during which Sarah and I barely speak, Mom says, "Tess, have you and Sarah had a fight?" "No," I say, which is the truth. I put on my bathing suit and my terry cloth robe, and Evie and I take towels and books outside to the beach. I spread my towel in the sand, sit down, turn my face to the sun, and realize that this is the first warm air I've felt since September. "I'll be right back," I say to Evie. I run inside, knock on Sarah's door, and call, Sarah, Sarah, you have to come outside right now. The sun is out, the sand is hot, and there are shells everywhere. Really? Says Sarah. That morning, Sarah and I walk up and down the beach, putting shells into a plastic bucket. Sarah says she is going to make a collection for her father. I'm not sure what she means by this, and I decide not to ask. All that week, Sarah and I play on the beach. We go swimming. We eat fried clams. We make up plays with Evie and put them on for her parents. On her last day in Florida, Evie tells Sarah a joke that makes her laugh so hard she falls over in the sand. Then she begins to cry. Then she begins to laugh again. When the vacation ends and we return to Hopewell, Sarah and I start spending the afternoons together like we used to. One day, Sarah shows me a large cardboard carton that she has placed in the corner of her bedroom. Look inside, she says. This is the collection for my father. I'm filling this box with things he would have liked. I lift a flap. I see a painting of a tree that Sarah made in art class, a white marble, a blue jay's feather, a stone that looks like a cat's ear, and all the shells she found in Florida. I move the painting to one side and find a green and red macaroni chain, the chain Sarah made at my house on the day I had the first sign that I would see Santa Claus. I lift the chain out. Remember when we made all those decorations? Asks Sarah. I nod. I can barely think about Christmas now, and I haven't looked at my special calendar in weeks. I plan to cross every day off until Christmas. The last day I crossed off was February 23rd. I drop the chain back into the box, but Sarah lifts it out once again and looks at it with a small smile before placing it carefully by the painting. In May, our class starts to plan an end-of-the-year program for our parents. Miss Sullivan says that everyone has to participate in the program. We can perform alone or in groups. I do not want to perform at all, but performing with someone else is better than performing by myself. So I asked Sarah if she wants to do choral speaking with me, but Sarah says she wants to recite Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening by Robert Frost, which was her father's favorite poem, and that she wants to do it alone. I am disappointed, but I remember Sarah's collection and understand that this is something she must do for her father. I decide to work with 3 other kids who have written a skit about a family who gets a pet cat. They want me to be the cat, which is fine because I won't have to say any lines. On the morning of the last day of school, Sarah cries and tells me that this is the first time only her mother will be able to see her in a program. I don't know what to say to Sarah. It's true. This is the first time. There will be lots of other times, lots of things her father will miss. This is a sad day, and I wish it could be different. Finally, I say to Sarah, I know it's really sad. I wish things could be different. Sarah sniffles and smiles at me. I feel kind of like my father is with me, though, and he's going to hear the poem this afternoon. At the end of the day, when it's Sarah's turn to perform, she stands up in front of our class and our parents and says, I'm going to recite Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening by Robert Frost. This was my father's favorite poem, and I'm dedicating it to him. Then she says the whole poem without even a sniffle, and at the end she smiles at her mother. Summer comes, and as if to make it up for our extra cold and snowy winter, it is the hottest summer I can remember. Dad puts fans in the kitchen and in all our bedrooms. He even puts one in the dining room, although to escape the heat, we eat most of our meals on the screened porch. Sarah's mother gets a part-time job, so Sarah spends lots of time at our house. One lazy day when Sarah and I are so hot we can think of nothing to do except lie in the grass and watch the clouds, Sarah says to me, You know what I can't wait for? Your birthday? I ask. Sarah's birthday is in August, and every year her mother says she can have whatever she wants for her birthday dinner, and Sarah always chooses chocolate cake and lobster. Nope, replies Sarah. Christmas. I sit up and look at her. Really? Christmas? But that I'm trying to think of a tactful way to mention that this will be Sarah's first Christmas without her father. I know, says Sarah. Dad won't be here, but I still like thinking about getting a tree and our house when it smells like gingerbread and having secrets from Mom. I already decided what I'm going to make for her this year. What? I ask. A photo album with pictures of us and Dad in it. There are all these photos in a box that Mom keeps meaning to put into an album, but she never gets around to it. So I'm going to make one for her. I'll color a cover for it and maybe decorate the pages and write captions for all the pictures. She'll probably cry when I give it to her, but that'll be okay. I lie down in the grass again and think about trees and decorations and our church on Christmas Eve and snowy walks with Sadie. I decide that before I go to bed, I will find my Christmas calendar and start crossing off the days again. Chapter 14, the final chapter. Summer vacation ends, and in September, Sarah and I start 4th grade together in Mrs. Thompson's class. Evie begins 7th grade at Hopewell Junior High. She says she's nervous about going off to the bigger school with the older kids, but as she boards her bus on the first day, she doesn't look nervous at all. The warm weather lingers. Autumn is slow to arrive, and when it does come, it isn't as chilly or as snowy as the one before. October turns to November, and I faithfully cross off each day on my Christmas calendar. One evening, after I've crossed off another box, I count the boxes remaining before December 25th. 43. 43 days until my next chance to see Santa. I remember last year how I felt the magic building all fall, felt it building around me, in the snow, in the wind, and in the air. This year is different. I think I know why. It's because I'm not the same Tess. I'm not the Tess who believes that anything can happen if you wish hard enough. I understand now that Santa can do lots of amazing things, but he can't do everything, and that sometimes he brings wonderful gifts, but they're not exactly the ones you ask for. I still believe in magic, though, and I still believe in Santa. I hope Santa knows that I still truly believe. One day in early December, Sarah comes home with me after school. The snow is flying now, flying as hard as it ever flew last year. Let's play outside, says Sarah, as soon as we finish our snack. We take Sadie into our backyard, and she bounds around in the drifts, while Sarah and I flop onto our backs and make snow angels. Suddenly, Sarah jumps to her feet. I know, she says. Let's build a snow family. Let's make one with a mother and 3 children and some grandparents and a dog and a cat. A snow dog and cat, I say. Yes, Sarah is grinning. She kneels down and makes a snowball. We'll start with one of the grandfathers, she says. We are rolling and patting and hauling and huffing and puffing when Sarah exclaims, Can you believe there are only 21 days until Christmas? Just 21, Tess. I can hardly wait. Mom bought wrapping paper yesterday, and I couldn't help it. I played Christmas carols on a record player last night and wrapped up 2 presents. It's so exciting. You know, Mom and I are going to go to the pageant with you this year. Oh, goody, I reply. We can sit next to each other and watch Evie. Maybe we better not sit next to each other, says Sarah. Evie is going to be half of the donkey. She refuses to tell us which half, and she's not happy about it. You and Sarah better not laugh, she has said more than once. Remember when Evie was a shepherd, asked Sarah, and Mom and Dad and I went to church with you, and our parents shushed us for giggling when the baby Jesus doll fell out of the manger? That was when we were in 1st grade, I say, and in school, our class put on the night before Christmas for the kindergartners. Sarah grins as she plops her head onto our snow grandfather. I begin the body for his snow grandmother. I'm rolling a ball around and around the yard, and Sadie is chasing me. When I feel myself slip away, it happens so quickly that I stumble and fall on my snowball. But I don't care. I find myself thrust back into the cold, starry night, the whisperings and murmurings in the air. Love came down at Christmas. I'm in that other world for just a moment, with the doves and angels and ancient songs. And then I'm back in the snowy afternoon with Sarah, who's laughing. You squashed it, she cries. You squashed our grandmother. That night, I coax Sadie into my room and sit with her on the bed for a chat. I have something important to tell you, I say. Sadie cocks her head and gives me her full attention. I understand about the Christmas magic now, I announce. I sit back and wait for a moment, forgetting that Sadie can't answer me. At least I'm pretty sure I do. Sadie stares at me with her brown eyes. Christmas and Santa are all about hope. Did you see how Sarah was this afternoon? I thought Christmas would be sad for her this year, but thinking about it makes her happy. She's looking forward to the pageant and a tree, to getting out the decorations with her mother, to shopping and baking. She's feeling hopeful again, Sadie. Sarah didn't get the gift I asked Santa to give her last year, but she found hope. Christmas magic, too, I think. And that is a powerful gift. Sadie continues to gaze into my eyes, and I'm not sure, but I believe she nods her head very slightly. Now it is Christmas Eve, and I am lying in my bed, feeling the shift in the air around me, the shift that tells me the magic is taking over. Evie runs into my room and jumps onto the bed, shivering because she is barefoot. We are supposed to be asleep, but Evie is all wound up, thinking about that makeup kit. Downstairs, Mom and Dad are filling the stockings and putting presents under the tree. Evie and I whisper together until Evie says, I better go back to bed. Mom and Dad will be upstairs soon. After Evie leaves, I look out the window at the brightening sky. Christmas is everywhere now, and that crackle in the air, among the birds settling on the roof of the Andersons' barn. Sadie slips into my room, and I grin at her. As the moon moves through the sky and the doves coo and something flutters just outside my window, I put my arm around Sadie, and we sit together on the bed. Sit together on Christmas Eve. The end. Merry Christmas, friends.